An interesting thing. There's a gland in the center of your brain. I don't know if you're familiar with this. It's called the pineal gland. Okay? The ancients knew it as the sacred pine cone in man. Okay? This little cone in the center of your brain, when activated by the Kundalini force, fire, will open and will then throw energy to the right hemisphere. You can pronounce that pineal, you can pronounce that pineal. I had a guy write me, he said, well, you know, this thing, pineal, means seeing the face of God. That's what the word means, face of God. And pineal means pine cone. Well, then in doing research, I found out that in the cult of Osiris, when they would bring dead people into the chambers of the cult of Osiris, they would bring them in and place a little pine cone on their head. And there's something very interesting about this. Because that serpentine fire that raises from here in your meditation hits that sacred pine cone. Right where you're sitting here, we're in an area called the Pine Barrens. In the Pine Barrens, they have these pine cones. And the pine cones will not open unless they're hit by fire. That's why you have these natural fires in these pinelands. And when that fire hits that pine cone, the pine cone explodes, and seeds fly all over the place. And new life springs out all over the place. And little things grow where there was never any growth before, all because the fire hit the pine cone. You have a pine cone in the center of your brain, called the pineal or pineal gland of the brain. And here, point right there to your abdomen. You know what that's called? The solar plexus, the place of fire, the place of the sun. And when you raise that energy from here and it hits there, pow, there's an explosion. There's an explosion. And the seed is thrown forward, and there's new life, there's new understanding. All of these things are scientific principles. There's no religion. That's ridiculous. There's no spirituality. That's ridiculous. There's scientific. You are a human being. You function with a scientific principle. There is a macrocosm out there. There is a microcosm inside of you. The same rule that applies out there applies in here, and I'll show you that in a minute. But let me show you something here. The pineal gland. The pineal gland explodes within you. This gland waits for that heat to rise from the serpent, waits for that heat to rise from the solar plexus, touches the pineal gland, and explodes and gives you new life. New understanding, enlightenment. Things that you never even thought of before. Things that you never saw before. Things that you weren't even allowed to discuss before. Suddenly you start talking about things. Now, let me show you something. Go to page 28. We're going way back in the Old Testament. Jacob. You heard of Jacob? Jacob in the Old Testament. You there? Okay, now I want to tell you, Jacob fought with a man. He struggled with a man. It means he struggled with himself. Did you ever struggle with yourself? Did you ever fight with yourself? Did you ever argue with yourself? And you didn't know which way to turn. And it says Jacob took everything that he had and sent it to the other side of the river. In other words, he abandoned all of his desires. He abandoned all of his dreams. He abandoned all of his hopes. He abandoned everything. And he struggled and he struggled. And finally, the man that he was fighting with put his thigh out. The thigh, because of the location on the body, is a symbolic reference to desire. All of his desire was gone. He no longer could stand on his own flesh. He had to stand on this spiritual thing. And then what happened? Suddenly he could see. Suddenly when he put all of his thoughts to the other side, suddenly when he no longer was filled with his own desires, suddenly when he no longer was filled with his own thoughts, he could see. And he saw God face to face. And look what it says. Look at Genesis chapter 32 and look at verse 30. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face. Peniel. Peniel. It's in your head. And when he got rid of everything, all of the thoughts, all of the dreams, all of the desires were put out, then he saw God. And he calls the place Peniel. And you know what Jesus said about this? He said, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. The single eye is the pineal gland, the pineal gland. And do you know what it secretes? Your body will fill with light. It secretes a hormone called melatonin, which is a skin lightener. Which even has the capacity to kill cancer cells in their infant stage. It's in that book back there. So why do you meditate then? Oh, I have people say, oh, I meditate, I don't get anything out of it. They might have had a microscopic little cancer cell and the melatonin flowed down from the brain and dissolved the cancer cell, and you get up and say, oh, I didn't get anything out of this meditation. And that's the problem. You're trying to get something out of it, and instead of just allowing yourself to melt into the nothingness of nirvana and be taken up into the very bosom of the God Mother. What is that? Yeah, let's try a new battery. Huh? That's okay. We just started. This is great, though. You know what's so great about this? To know that this thing is not in the book, it's in you. That what Jacob found in him, you have in you. And when you touch that same thing, something happens. Oh, it says right in that book, your name is no longer Jacob. Your name is Israel. That's not the name of a country in the Middle East, my friends. That's a mystical name. It's an Egyptian name. Has nothing to do with Jewishness. Has nothing to do with Middle East. It is Isis, who is the mother spirit god, the feminine principle. That is the spirit. It is Ra, which is the male principle, that is the mind. It is El of the Mithra bull cult, which means the energy from within. And what's been said is your spirit and your mind are in harmony, and they have pronounced and produced the power which is within God, El. That's why they call the angel. And why all of the angels' names are Michael, Uriel, Gabriel, Raphael, Ariel, because it is the power within. So you become Israel. Why? Because you've changed. And you've changed because you've allowed all of your desires to be loosed. You've allowed the energy to rise within you. It touched the pineal gland, and it threw open that which to the right side. Didn't require you to do anything. Doesn't require you to know how to meditate. People come in and say, teach me how to meditate. It's, if I teach you how to meditate, I'm going to screw you up. You will meditate, a flower will open within you. See, when you try to peel open a rose to see how beautiful it is, you'll see the beauty for a minute, then it dies. It must open by itself. Just submit yourself, and that which is within you will open. And it throws the energy to the right side. The temple. It says in the Bible that God lives in a house not built with human hands, in the temple. Where's the temple not built with human hands? Feel it. The only temple in the universe not made with human hands is in the side of your head. See? And how's the temple built? When you're asked to meditate in silence. So you energize that which is the right hemisphere of the brain. I'm giving you a Bible workup. I want to show you something.